When the actress Lauren Ambrose arrives in the lobby at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, it takes a minute to recognize that she is indeed Lauren Ambrose. A wide-brimmed hat hides her flaring hair. A wool overcoat hides the rest of her. A girlish, clean-scrubbed face peeks out in between. That half-hidden face will soon be more visible and a lot dirtier when My Fair Lady, the 1956 Lerner and Loewe musical, begins previews on March 15 at the Vivian Beaumont Theatre. Ms. Ambrose, who has been peripheral to the public eye for a few years now, will play Eliza Doolittle, the pert Cockney flower seller who transforms her life through sheer force of will and correct vowel placement. She had come to the Met because an art historian cousin had tipped her off to a Renoir portrait of the first Eliza, the Austrian actress Tilla Durius, who created the role in George Bernard Shaw's Pygmalion, Lerner and Loewe's source text. She thought that maybe it would help her open up this antique play, find a new way through it. She said My Fair Lady is not exactly antique, but it hasn't had a Broadway revival in 25 years, and when the director Bartlett Sher cast Ms. Ambrose as his Eliza, the choice surprised many. To begin with, Eliza is one of the great parts for an ingenue. And Ms. Ambrose, 40, is not exactly an ingenue. After making a sardonic splash as a bathroom-trapped high school senior in the 1990 teen flick, Can't Hardly Wait, she spent 5 seasons in the early 2000s on the prestige cable series 6 Feet Under as Claire Fisher, the surly, sensitive art student. In 2006, she played an unhappy wife in Clifford Odets's Awake and Sing, directed by Mr. Sher. The next year she was, in Ben Brantley's words, a Juliet truly to die for, in Shakespeare in the Park's Romeo and Juliet, outshining her Romeo, Oscar Isaac. She returned to the Park in 2008 as a turbulent Ophelia and made her mascara-streaked Broadway debut in 2009 in Eugene Ionesco's Exit the King. Since then it's mostly been TV movies, sporadic series appearances and a few pilots that didn't take. As an actor, she has force, she has nerve, she is queen of the ugly cry. She looks like a Dante Gabriel Rossetti model, minus the consumption, and she has an emotional transparency that makes her sunburnable skin seem see-through. That's all true. This is also true. Ms. Ambrose has one previous musical theater credit, as Ado Annie in Oklahoma. In high school. If you are wondering why Ms. Ambrose, older and differently credentialed than a typical Eliza, should vault ahead, Mr. Sher put it simply. There is no better actress working in New York right now, he said. Still, that lack of experience could be a worry. Oh my God, she said. If I'm going to start listing worries, it's going to be a long list. Then she laughed. I'm kidding, she said. I'm actually not worried. I'm super excited. It's been a long time coming. Ms. Ambrose never meant to make us wait. I mean, I've been threatening to be in a musical for hundreds of years at this point, she said. She started performing early, singing in the choir of her Catholic church in New Haven. When she was 11, she appeared on Star Search, bopping in a purple skirtsuit and matching hair bow to a sped-up arrangement of Dancing in the Street. She lost out to a kid singing the soul-stirrer God Bless the Child, Not a Fair Fight. As a teenager she began classical training, including a stint at Tanglewood. She figured she'd head to a conservatory, like a lot of her friends did, maybe try for a career in opera. But she booked a couple of off-Broadway plays and then the movie In and Out, and soon she was in a series, and there was never really time for a conservatory, for college, for the commitment a musical requires. In 2009, when she was in town gigging with her Dixieland band, the Leisure Class, Ms. Ambrose told The New Yorker, "I would love to do a musical. Something old-fashioned, probably." And 2 years later she nearly got her wish, when she was cast as Fanny Brice in a Broadway-bound revival of Funny Girl, directed by Mr. Cher. But 4 months later the financing fell apart, the musical was scrapped. "I don't think it was about me," Ms. Ambrose said. "That's mostly true." As Mr. Cher said, speaking by telephone, in a season already packed with revivals, the investors couldn't really pull together the amount of money they needed. Would a flashier name have made a difference in the financing? Yes, Mr. Cher said. You need to have a big, giant star to carry those things in that environment. But he didn't want a big, giant star. He wanted Ms. Ambrose. She could sing it, she could act it. She had all the heart you need, he said. Why isn't Ms. Ambrose a giant? Back on Star Search, when Ed McMahon stoops down and asks her to introduce herself, she gives a heart-cracking smile and says, "I hope to someday be a great actress and a wonderful performer." It happened. The great actress part. The wonderful performer part. But Ms. Ambrose, who long ago traded Hollywood for a semi-rural cottage, has always skirted celebrity. Early on there were a few attempts to mold her into a starlet, narcissism boot camp, she called it. But she never really went along with it. Years ago an agent snapped at her about not playing the game, she said. "I've always just been more of an actor," she said. Other actors build brands and shore up celebrity with glossy magazine shoots, social media posts, sponsorships. She doesn't. Not that she judges anyone who does. For real. You might be seeing me on Instagram, holding a mayonnaise jar, in like 10 minutes, she said. She rarely gives interviews. But after hiring some personal publicists to curate how it's done in a way that feels okay to me, she agreed to this conversation. "Because I'm proud of this opportunity and excited, and I have to do a bunch of stuff anyway for Lincoln Center." Still, she apologized a couple of times for giving me nothing to write about. Once, she unconsciously pushed the recorders away. You can plot Ms. Ambrose's ambivalence on a map. When 6 Feet Under ended in 2005, somebody with a brain might have continued on in California to further one's career, she said. But she moved to New York to do theater. And then a few years after that she moved to what she calls the woods. The Berkshires? The woods, she repeated. Could be any woods. She lives there with her husband, the filmmaker Sam Handel, a son, 11, and a daughter, 5. She and Mr. Handel met at a wrap party for a film neither of us had worked on, and they married a year later, when Ms. Ambrose was 23. They have matching tattoos, undulating scripts of "Not Alone" inked inside their wrists. He has been a stabilizing force while Ms. Ambrose has tried to make a life in acting, this difficult, impossible, groundless, shifting thing, she said. The woods offer more stability, though My Fair Lady has meant temporarily resettlement on the Upper West Side. Basically we're counting it as a big family adventure, she said. Just how woodsy is Ms. Ambrose? Let's just say that in The River, a short film she made with Mr. Handel, she plays a cashier at an organic food co-op with keen familiarity. And that she was into kombucha before kombucha was a thing. And that her idea of a rehearsal skirt involves tie-dye. And that over dinner at Shun Lee West a week or so after the morning at the museum, she showed photos on her phone of her favorite chicken, Gloria. Ms. Ambrose ate Peking duck at dinner. Don't tell Gloria. Last fall, Mr. Cher invited her into the city to audition for Eliza after he already considered lots and lots and lots and lots of people, he said, many of them prominent musical comedy stars. No, he didn't name names. The day that she came in was kind of a runoff. A little bit of its own reality show in the making, he said. Ms. Ambrose 1. I don't want to create expectations that are too out of control, he said. But then he called her funny and glamorous and furious and wild. Eliza is described in the script as perhaps 18, perhaps 20, hardly older, but as Ms. Ambrose said, I think that the story of a woman who is coming into her powers can really happen at any age. Besides, Mrs. Patrick Campbell, for whom Shaw created the role, was nearly 50 when she played it. So there. In the months before rehearsals started, Ms. Ambrose threw herself into research about Shaw, about Lerner and Loewe, about the Flower Girls of Tottenham Court Road, putting their pictures on her phone, a swipe away from that chicken. At the Met, looking for her own elusive Eliza, she passed a Rodin exhibit, which had its own Pygmalion sculpture, an artist wresting a girl from stone. This myth, I have questions, she said. As she examined it, Ms. Ambrose mentioned a Rainer Maria Rilke sonnet, The Archaic Torso of Apollo. The poem begins as the writer confronts an ancient sculpture and ends with its imperative, you must change your life. That should actually be our goal while we're here, she said, eating a granola bar she'd filched from her kids. The Renoir, painted in 1914 when the artist was so infirm that he had to strap his brushes to his hand, wasn't going to change anyone's life, but that didn't really matter. Though Ms. Ambrose is rigorous in her research, to prepare for her roles she mostly looks inward. Acting has elements of magic for her, of ritual. She thinks that every job that the universe places in my hands has something to teach her, and so she gives over her dream life to it, most of her waking life. 2. On 6 Feet Under, she and Claire learned how to be artists together. She never had a false note, Alan Ball, the show's creator said. When she played Juliet, her baby son fired her love for Romeo, and the play became a way to channel all of the possibly overwhelming emotions of new motherhood, she said. Not that Ms. Ambrose works by simple substitution. This isn't algebra. Oscar Eustis, who directed her in Hamlet, described her work as always harrowing. She will happily scare you and scare herself. At the museum that morning, at dinner a week later, she was still discovering what the role would teach her, what kind of Eliza she would be. She wasn't alone. Mr. Cher said that he is still working out the central relationships. Even the poster for the show has Eliza's face a blank. Ms. Ambrose knows that My Fair Lady can go wrong. She knows that the songs can gloss over the ugly way that Henry Higgins, the eccentric, arrogant phonetician, played here by the English actor Harry Haddon Payton, treats Eliza. She knows that Eliza can come across as merely sassy, spunky, cute. She knows that the ending can seem like a surrender, not a meeting of equals. She won't let that happen. I'm fighting for the dignity of the character, she said. She sees the Eliza as a powerful person and an actualized person, a hero. On a rainy Saturday morning, she and Mr. Haddon Peyton were rehearsing the scene where Eliza arrives at Higgins's home and demands lessons while Higgins insults her. Script in hand, tie-dyed skirt swishing, Ms. Ambrose's shrieking Eliza wasn't yet actualized. She was angry and scared and crushingly brave. A woman determined to change her life. The role could change Ms. Ambrose's life, though it's too soon to know just how. Maybe it will give her the kind of celebrity she's never entirely wanted. Maybe it will make her a Broadway regular. Maybe it will send her back to the woods more in command of her chickens and her powers. The universe hasn't told her yet. The best is when it's a real surprise, Ms. Ambrose said.